Hello, I'm Anthony Silard and welcome to the Art of Living Free. I want to tell you about our new course, Managing Loneliness. So first of all, to understand why is this course so important? Well, back in 2018, Cigna, the healthcare company, they released a survey of over 10,000 American adults that found that 43% of them were lonely, scoring in the loneliness range, in the high loneliness range in the UCLA Revised Loneliness Scale. 2 years later, January 2020, this is before the pandemic. In January of 2020, same survey, over 10,000 US adults again, the percentage of American adults who tested high for loneliness increased from 43% to 61% in just those 2 years. Over 3 in 5 Americans are now lonely. Another study by Matthew Brashear has found that our discussion networks, the people who we can talk to about important issues, in 1985, the average American adult had 3 people they could confide in. By 2004, it had shrunk to 2 people. In fact, 25% of American adults by 2004 had no one whom they could talk with about important issues. Many of us are extremely lonely, and this has gotten much worse. This is not just an American phenomenon. Okay, this phenomenon is global. So in the UK, for example, former Prime Minister Theresa May hired a minister for loneliness. British children spend less time outside than prison inmates. There's actually a study that's found that. Okay, so whether it's US, there's loneliness studies in France, in Germany, in Japan, all over the world, and we're finding the same thing, that loneliness has been skyrocketing. Thus, this course. All right, so you may be thinking, well, why should I take this course? Like, why is it important? Because this is really a course about how to develop the relationships you need to survive and thrive in life. And I'm talking about your personal life and your professional life. If you want to work with people towards any type of goal that's important to you, then there's really nothing more important than learning how to develop strong, meaningful, robust connections with others. So this course on managing loneliness will have 6 modules. Each module will contain about 8 videos, which I will be presenting, as well as a module chapter of a workbook, so you'll actually be working on your own vision statement and action plan in terms of how to manage loneliness and develop more meaningful and robust social relationships. That's really the end goal here, is to better manage loneliness and develop more meaningful relationships in your life, starting with your relationship with yourself. There will also be PowerPoint, so if you don't want to go back and watch the videos, you can also go back and see slides to cover the main points and kind of refresh and remind yourself from time to time. You will own all this for a lifetime. So let me tell you what the 6 modules are. So the first module is called Understanding Loneliness. So in research that I've been doing with Sarah Wright at the University of Canterbury in New Zealand and others, we've uncovered that there are 3 root motivations that cause loneliness. In other words, 3 unfulfilled human needs. When these needs go unfulfilled, we feel lonely. So what we call loneliness, a lot of people don't realize it, there's actually different types of loneliness. And you may be experiencing one and not the others, and this will help you to identify it and really understand, okay, here's what's going on in my life, here's what I need to work on. The second module is called Your Relationship Inventory. Here you're going to take an inventory of your relationships. Which relationships do you draw meaning from? Which relationships do you feel fulfilled in? And which ones do you not? And why? And what can you do to either change those existing relationships or develop other relationships to replace them with or complement them with so you can have a more robust social life. A fascinating study by Leslie Seltzer at the University of Wisconsin found that when we engage in a phone call or a face-to-face interaction, it causes the release of 2 neurochemicals. One is oxytocin, which is a kind of bonding neuropeptide. It's related to sense of warmth and closeness with another human being. And the other is cortisol, which is sort of the stress hormone. So basically, if you're on the phone or having a face-to-face interaction with someone, it reduces cortisol and reduces your stress, and it increases your oxytocin. So you get a warm feeling of bonding with that person. In a follow-up study, and this is just fascinating, Seltzer and her colleagues introduced email to see what are the effects of that on cortisol and oxytocin. Zero effect. So in other words, a phone call can approximate in-person interaction in terms of reducing stress and feeling of like you're really bonding with another person. Email does neither. So taking this kind of relationship inventory will also be about who are what I call the social gold in your life. The people who, if you call them, they'll call you back or they'll answer the phone. Who are the people who will actually make an effort to call you or to get together with you? Or when you make plans, they'll actually show up. That's the kind of things we'll be working on in this module. Module 3 is called the Inner Detour. Okay, the Inner Detour, what this is all about is let's consider what loneliness is. So loneliness is a distressing negative emotion associated with being alone. Solitude is a strengthening positive emotion associated with being alone. In other words, it's not being alone that causes loneliness. It's your perception of it. It's your perception of the types of relationships you'd like to have in your life versus the type you actually have, and the gap in between. If there's a large gap there, you're going to feel lonely. Of your desired relationships versus your actual relationships. That's where loneliness creeps in and can take over. So in the Inner Detour, we'll be looking at how can you make your self-time a priority. And not just, okay, I mean, the sort of generic advice like, make time for yourself and go do yoga. It's going to be about choosing times to spend alone when you're feeling strong. All right. The fourth module is called How to Be Lonely Without Becoming Depressed. So loneliness and depression are very different, and we're going to look at why are they different and how can you use your loneliness as an impetus to grow your relationships rather than falling into a depression. I'll give you a hint here. There's a quote that I came up with which helps to explain this. Depression is loneliness that's lost hope. When we feel depression, it's not just that we feel lonely, but we feel like there's nothing I know how to do to not feel lonely. And that is the worst feeling ever. It's a feeling of helplessness and powerlessness, and that's what we want to avoid. So a lot of this is going to be about building self-esteem and self-efficacy, feeling like, you know what, there are things I can do to improve my social relationships, beginning with my relationship with myself. So the fifth module is called Searching for Social Connection Online. One of the main themes in my book, Screened In, The Art of Living Free in the Digital Age, is that we go online seeking social connection, but what we end up with is social information. So social connection is a buffer against loneliness. In fact, it's one of the strongest antidotes to loneliness, is to connect with others and build relationships. Social information is not. In fact, social information does not lessen loneliness. In fact, it's the opposite. Social information exacerbates, compounds, makes your loneliness worse. The reason is, when you go online, what do you see? Right? You go on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, you see the one moment in a friend's vacation of a week-long trip with the family. It's the one moment where everyone's smiling, and you go, well, why doesn't my family smile like that? How come we're not happy like they are, right? Or you see pictures of your friends. The guys try to get as buff as they can for their photos. Women, even some use this shrinking software. Everyone's trying to show their best selves. In fact, they're not even showing themselves. It's this collective game of self-presentation. It's a farce, okay? And it's for this reason that the #1 reported emotion of Facebook users, you want to guess what it is? Pause. Envy. That's what we experience when we're going online, and that contributes to our loneliness because we feel, how come I am not as good as others? So that's what the fifth module will be focusing on. The sixth and final module is called Revitalize Your Relationships. And as it sounds, this is going to be really about, okay, now that I have a better understanding of loneliness, I've taken an inventory of my personal relationships. I've learned a lot of strategies to decrease loneliness and to better develop the kind of meaningful, profound, rich, deep and sustainable relationships that I'm seeking in my life, how am I going to go about doing that? And we will teach you numerous strategies to do precisely that. So I hope you will join us. This is going to be a go-at-your-own-pace course where you'll have all the materials, and it's going to be, I'm not going to kid you, it's like what you get out of it's going to be based on what you put in. I'm going to give you all the questions for you to keep a journal as you go through this practice and this process. I would recommend you take this course with a friend or a group, but you're welcome to do it on your own. But if you have someone else that you're doing it with, the advantages there are that you'll be able to compare and share notes with each other and meet and talk about it. Maybe you might decide to do this. Hey, let's do this over 6 weeks, 1 module per week, or maybe over 6 months, a module per month. You'll find out what works best for you. We'll also have a discount if you do wish to do this with a friend, so you won't have to buy 2 versions of the course. There'll be a discount for you to do it with a group, even for your whole group or with a friend. So it won't cost a whole lot more than doing it just alone. And I really hope that you'll join us and use this as an opportunity to really better understand how to manage loneliness and develop the relationships you need to not only survive in your life, because we need social connection to survive, but also to thrive. Thank you.